keeps turning, the times move fast. What worked before may not always last. Fathers, sons, brothers stand tall, learning from each other, we rise through it all. Young and old, side by side, bridging the gap with truth and pride. The times may change, but the heart remains. Let's connect, break the chains, bridging generations, voices of men. From the past to the future, we rise again. Different views, but the bond stays strong. We listen, we learn, we all belong. We're living in a world that's shifting fast. New challenges come, but our strength will last. Wisdom meets vision, we light the way. Standing together, we won't fade away. Young and old, side by side, bridging the gap with truth and pride. The times may change, but the heart remains. Let's connect, bridging generations, voices of men. From the past to the future, we rise again. Different views, but the bond stays strong. We listen, we learn, we all belong. We're living in a world that's shifting fast. New challenges come, but our strength will last. Wisdom meets vision, we light the way. Standing together, we won't fade away. And changing world, a brand new stage. We must rise to meet the age. With open minds and hearts that lead. Together we grow, together we succeed. Bridging generations, voices of men in a changing world. In a changing world.
Greetings, friends of the A Collision with Purpose movement. Welcome to Bridging Generations, Voices of Men in a Changing World. I am Dr. Laxley Stephenson. This groundbreaking podcast delves into the multifaceted experiences of men across different generations. In an era where societal norms and expectations rapidly evolve, this show offers young and older men a unique platform to voice their challenges, triumphs, and perspectives.
And each episode aims to foster understanding and bridge the gap between generations, exploring themes ranging from masculinity and mental health to career dynamics and personal relationships. By bringing together voices from varied age groups, the show sheds lights on the commonalities and differences in the male experience, encouraging open dialogue and mutual learning. I am Dr. Garfield McCook, one of your hosts.
Yeah, so whether it's a teenager grappling with the pressures of social media or a senior reflecting on the changing definitions of manhood, Bridging Generations is committed to uncovering the real stories of men navigating the complexities of a changing world. I'm another one of your co-hosts, Dr. Juan Marcel. I'm turning it over to Doc. Tell us what's going on.
Man, what a weekend we had. By the way, gentlemen, happy June.
Yes.
What happened? It's June already?
Second day.
Goodness. It's just like it was just
January
24. And then something happened, and we're halfway through the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did something happen? What did we achieve? What did we accomplish? Let's talk about what we accomplished. One, talk to us. What did we accomplish?
Or in May or just this past weekend?
This year. Let's talk about this weekend. Let's bring it to this weekend. But that was something special.
Yes, it was. It was. This weekend we had the distinct privilege and honor of celebrating over 50 graduates with Main Seed Christian University coming through this leadership fellowship, this global fellowship actually, honorary doctors and graduates in various majors and programs.
Yeah,
And I was excited because I got to pass the robe to Doc so he could wear these.
That was special, right?
Yeah.
You passed the robe.
Yeah.
And talk about passing the robe into building legacy. That's what you did.
Yes.
Wow. Quite a powerful event. And we did 64.
64.
64. Not all of them in person, some virtual.
Yep.
64. Right. How big is that?
That's huge. That's huge.
Super. And and Docs, I didn't go to church on I didn't go to church on Sunday because that event itself felt like it was at or in church. It was so strong. The vibes was there. I mean, it was a graduation, but coming from the Main Seed Christian University standpoint, or the atmosphere, it brought things home. I felt the vibes was there. I mean, you would have to forget that you're not just at a graduation, but you're in church. So it was a great feeling. Good to see you guys up there doing the honors and, as you say, passing on the legacy.
Well, it was not just a graduation. It was something special, it was something sacred. And that's what it really was. It's about building legacy, building leadership. And that's what we did. And in fact, we had two powerful days. Day one, Friday, was something special as well. And day two, Saturday, we just knocked it out of the park. So we look forward to October when we're doing it all over again. But I tell you what's big for me is that in collaboration with Main Seed Christian University, we are giving out 31 bachelor's degree scholarships for students in Kenya. All expenses paid, 4 years. And we're doing 12 in Jamaica. So do the math, right? That's what, 43 scholarships, bachelor's degree, full scholarship, no expense. All the students must do is maintain a C average. And we're not just doing scholarships. We're going to find mentors to walk with these students. So
that's powerful. And Dr. Lax, I know you leave soon for that journey, which I hope I was going to be on with you, but circumstances do not permit. But I know you're going to have a grand time there, and we'll be getting all the videos and everything of what's going on in that side of the world.
Well, I'll tell you what is going to happen there. We're leaving Friday. A couple of our team members are leaving Thursday, but we're leaving Friday. We're going to be in Nairobi for 4 days. And from there, we'll go to the Western region. We're going to cover 4 orphanages where we're going to serve food. 4 different ones, 1 in Nairobi and 3 in the Western region. We're doing 2 pit toilets, 4 doors each. It's a done deal. We're doing those. We're serving food. We're giving out clothes. We're going to go into Uganda. We're also planting trees. So, that's important. We got to plant trees, right? Reforestation. That's a big deal everywhere. It's a big deal everywhere. And what else are we doing? We're going to visit cancer patients. And we're bringing books. We're bringing books as well. And we'll be having a good time as well. Part of this initiative will also be tourism, because we want to make sure that 11 of us going, that they will want to go back to Kenya. So we're going to make sure they have a great time as well. So I'm looking forward to it. It's a big deal. If you are watching us and you still want to make a donation to the initiative, please feel free to do so. All these things cost money, right? These toilets, all the initiatives, and there's so many students over there who are in need of scholarship. They're not at the college level. However, they're attending high school and they can use some support.
Right.
So anyone watching, listening to us tonight, and if you feel inclined to do something, jump on. You can sell to a collisionwithpurpose@gmail.com. We appreciate any amount you can send. Dr. McCook, let's talk real quick about, well, let me bring Augusta on first, bring him on screen. Now, I want you to talk real quick about our other initiative that is coming up in July. Let's bring up the speed on that real quick.
Okay, so right now we are in the phase where, for those who are not aware, we have a international reggae song competition that's in the phase now where fans from around the world are voting on their top 7 artists, and those votes will be tallied on June 30th, and the announcement made on July 1st who the top 7 are. Those top 7 will perform live at Shiloh High School in Snellville, Georgia on July 26th, starting at 6 p.m. And they're vying for the top prize. This is our 5th year. The top prize of $8,000 plus a trophy, $4,000 plus a trophy, and a consolation prize, I call it, of $1,000. And that person will become, well, all of them are ambassadors for Jamaica and keeping our heritage, our independence, heritage, and culture alive. So that's the phase we're in right now. We're excited, and we're still looking for partners. It's not too late to partner with us. If you're just hearing us now, you can join us at jiifsc.com and be a partner with us. Looking forward to seeing you, and tickets can be purchased also at jiifsc.com.
So go out there, get your tickets, early bird price. It's going on.
$45 through end of June.
You want to get it while it's early. It's going to be a packed house.
Yes.
So you want to get in there, and this is real entertainment. But it's not just entertainment. Proceeds will go to a scholarship fund, fund something in Jamaica. Students again. We're all focused on students. So when you attend GIFs, you're not just attending a musical event. You're serving humanity. So that's what we do around here, right? We serve humanity. All right, so let me welcome, I got to call her Dr. Tremaine Tamar. Wow. I got to call her Dr. Tremaine Tamar Stephenson. It was, I tell you, one of the highlights of my time yesterday was roping my daughter. That was one of the highlights. Congratulations, Tremaine. All right, big stuff. Welcome, Dr. Reed, joining us. She says she's looking forward to this competition. And before, Gary, talk to us about the other big thing that is happening in Atlanta, the JMCC.
Okay, so the Jamaica Museum and Cultural Center, where we just basically kicked off our brick campaign. So you can go ahead and buy your brick. It's going to be a museum here that is going to reflect our culture. And the Caribbean, we're going to have all kind of Caribbean entities or cultures engraved in that the walls of that museum. So it's something here. Atlanta is the hub. It's a hub for many reasons. A lot of air traffic comes through Atlanta, Georgia, and people when they come and sometimes they just get off the plane. It feels so good they want to stay. But we're in conversation, or we have kicked off the JMCC brick campaign. Dr. Laxley and myself are assisting on the sidelines. And it's going to be a good deal. It's going to be a good deal. You will be able to see the history of Jamaican music and culture. We are trying here not to lose touch with our native land. So that's another big thing that's happening. We've been going around and interviewing individuals who are stalwarts in our community. We have Marcel, who is a sculptor, who did the Martin Luther King sculpture here. We interviewed him recently. He's going to be a part of that, and it's going to be great. Big things coming. We're doing big things out here,
and we're looking for support not just from Jamaicans. Mm-hmm. If you are a human being, we're looking for your support. If you walk on this earth, we're looking for your support. So, again, the president of JMCC is online with us right now, and that is Dr. Reed. We're going to bring her on the program one of these days so we can talk in depth about this initiative. Dr. McCook, I know you already bought your break. One.
Oh, yes.
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 One. And
Yes.
I know you got mine. One.
Mhm.
And I know Dr. Juan will get his, and Augusta will get his, and our guest tonight will also get one as well when we're done. So anyway, let's take a quick break because we have an important show ahead, and let's do it. Let's take a quick break.
I'm a boy kid, I'm a boy kid. I'm a boy kid, I'm a boy kid. I wake up in the morning and I praise the Lord. I thank Him for His protection, and I walk in His steps, declaring that today's provision is set up for me. I love God and I love my friends. Kid, I'm a bold kid. I'm a bold kid. I'm a bold kid. I put on my armor and I write His word, blessing come out of my mouth. Cause I know to whom I belong, I am bold for Christ. Holy Spirit dwelling within me, carrying His presence wherever He sends me. I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid. I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid. Loving others as He told me to pray for healing, miracles to see, knowing my identity in Christ, He is in me. I am a bold kid, He loves me, standing firm on His word, proclaiming everything I heard, not afraid because He is with me. Be bold. I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid. Put on my armor and I write His word, blessing come out of my mouth. Because I know to whom I belong, I am bold for Christ. Holy Spirit dwelling within me, carrying His presence wherever He sends me. I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid. I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back to the show. You're watching Bridging Generations, Voices of Men in a Changing World. And man, do we live in a changing world. Juan, those a privilege. What's the honor of bringing our guest on tonight?
Yes, well, guess what? Today on Bridging Generations, Voices of Men, we welcome a trailblazer, a fierce advocate for equity, and a champion for communities often left in the shadows. So we have Keisha Waits, who is the candidate for Public Service Commission, District 3. She's no stranger to public service or to public impact. She's a proud native of Atlanta. She has served as both a Georgia State representative and an Atlanta City Council member representing District 60, home to Southeast Atlanta, Hapeville, East Point, or the Pernt is what they call it, and the world's busiest airport, Hartsfield-Jackson. From the halls of Georgia General Assembly to disaster zones across the country, Keisha Waits has consistently shown what it means to lead with purpose. She advocates for the disadvantaged youth, pushing forward any anti-bullying legislation. She's fighting for accessibility for the disabled, or in helping families recover from natural disasters. Her leadership is bold, visionary, and people-centered. She's a proud alumni of Georgia Southern. Look, she's done her work. Harvard Kennedy School of Government and the Council of State Governments Henry Toll Fellowship, equipped not just with credentials, but with a dynamic calling. Without further ado, none else than Keisha Waits, who can tell her story a lot better than I can. So without further ado, welcome Keisha Waits.
Thank you so much for that amazing. That was incredible. I was like, wow, life just went by pretty quickly. Thank you so much for the read and for your thoughtfulness tonight in the invitation.
Oh, you're so welcome. You are so welcome. And, you know, you've done a lot, Keisha. You've done so much. But through your lenses, from your voice, just share a little bit about you.
Well, I think it's important when you look at what's happening at the national level in the federal government. It's almost like Congress and the Supreme Court forgot the role. We have three different branches of government, but we're not behaving that way. It's almost like it's been usurped. So, like you, I'm frustrated. I've got some of these high utility bills that many of you have received, but I want to start by telling you this: I'm a woman of God. There's nothing that I do that I don't consult and check in terms of the decisions that I have made. I don't do this for the process of wealth or getting rich. I do this because I believe that this is a calling, just like each and every one of you on this single call. This work is a calling. And so, to much is given, much is expected. And I've had the privilege of being a part of some important conversations. I've been on both sides of the aisle. I've been the underdog on these conversations. I've lost, and we won some big victories. One of the greatest losses that I can recall was guns everywhere. I was a member of the General Assembly when we passed the bill that said you can take a weapon into a church, that said you can take a weapon anywhere in the state of Georgia. We have one of the worst gun bills in the United States of America that happened right here in Georgia. And so I took that personal. But what I've also learned is you live to fight another day. And so I'm here and I'm excited about this opportunity.
I love it. I love it.
Live
We're
to fight
excited to have
another
you.
day. How powerful is that? You know, too often when I don't want to call it loss, when we suffer a little bit of setback, we let it put us down, right? But we're resilient people.
Yeah.
That is not who we are. So I know Juan is going to lead us off tonight with questions for you. So Juan, can you get us started?
Yes, absolutely. My first question is this: what inspired you to pursue a seat on the Public Service Commission, and how does the role align with your commitment to public service?
Great question. So I represented one of the most marginalized districts in the metro Atlanta area that encompassed DeKalb, Fulton, and Clayton County. These were fairly impoverished communities. Gentrification came, but not everybody benefited. I think that's the best way to put the conversation. I had the airport, one of the greatest commodities in the state of Georgia in the district. I had Porsche in the district. Of course, we all love Delta Airlines. But everybody did not come along in that prosperity. That makes sense to you.
Mhm.
My thought process in going to the General Assembly was how can we utilize the relationship and the power of legislation to change the lives of everyday people? I ran into a constant brick wall. I was a member of 180 representatives and 56 senators, and so it was very difficult. But this particular seat just came out of the court in January. We had to fight for the right to be on the ballot. This race has been tied up for years because unfortunately we have our friends across the aisle, and I don't feel the need to call them Republicans because they want what you want. They want clean air, they want water, and they want to make sure that our power grids don't go out like you see in Puerto Rico and these places around the world. The alignment is this: we are giving tax incentives to the tune of $296 million to data centers. I am not anti tech. I am not anti business, but we have to balance the needs of residential communities with the business community. The PSC, the Public Service Commission, was put in place to protect you and I. It's a watchdog advocacy group. However, it has not operated that way. Right now, it is a talking piece and a mouthpiece for public utility companies. We've had our rates raised 6 times since 2023. Yes, we had some violent storms. So did the other parts of the country. But we are 13 in the United States in terms of the highest energy costs. We are the highest in the United States in terms of disconnection rates, and that impacts brown, Black, marginalized, and working communities. So, what's the correlation? How does it align? It's about fighting for people. It's about standing up to bullies. It's about making sure that Georgia Power shouldn't be in my pocket. Right now, PSC members have the ability to take campaign donations from the folks that they regulate. That is illegal as a member of the Georgia General. You can't take any money during the session. And so I'll stop there. to hear what's on your mind.
Well, Doctor, you're gonna say something, Doc?
No.
Oh, okay. Yes. So, welcome, Miss Keisha Waits, and your last name Waits. You know, it's interesting. You seem to have a lot of weight carried, and you know, your plate seems full. So I'm going, and I hope I don't overfill it with this next question. But given your background in disaster recovery and community advocacy, how do you plan to ensure that the energy policies that you mentioned a bit a while ago address the needs of the underserved communities?
Great question. The PSC is charged with regulating rates. So rates are going to go up. There has to be a balance. The challenge that I see in Georgia is that we have a cap on profits for, and I'm going to use Georgia Power, at 11.9%. That is higher than any place in the United States. I've already talked to you about the incentives that are being given out. The federal government, Washington, is cutting out the low energy assistance program. Who uses that? Seniors, working families. And so those are the folks that are going to be impacted. Where are these data centers going? Rural, small towns and communities. Jackson, Douglas, those types of areas. A Black family right now is fighting eminent domain from the Public Service Commission. That should be illegal. There has to be a fair market analysis done, a study done. None of those things happened. And so this, again, it's an example of not having oversight. You each remember when the biolab fire happened in Conyers, Georgia. You saw the result of that. There has not been any admonishment. There has not been any penalties whatsoever. Yeah, we closed the plant, but guess what? There are two next door that are still open. So the PSC, our job is to provide an oversight, an audit, community benefit agreement. If I come into your community, there has to be a benefit. I should be putting solar panels on your hospitals, putting solar panels in your libraries and your schools. I should be figuring out a way to drive down the cost, not make money off the backs of the ratepayers.
Thanks. Powerful. Thanks a lot for that.
We're learning a lot tonight, and you're saying that the watchdog is in alignment with the people they're supposed to be watching, the companies that they're supposed to be watching.
What better example than Washington, D.C.? The donors of the President of the United States are in secretary positions running the country. Yeah. Where does this happen other than a third world country? Right? And so we're supposed to lead these types of conversations. We have basically pretty much dismantled the Environmental Protection Agency. So a lot of the conversations that we talk about in terms of climate change, if you don't believe it's real, go down to South Georgia and look at the devastation. Go over to Louisiana and look at how a barge was thrown into a city and we ended up with a levee. And there's a lot of conspiracy surrounding that conversation. Go up to New York and look at the devastation of Hurricane Sandy. Climate change is real and it's not going to reverse overnight.
You know, that you talk about Sandy, right? And not a lot of water from above, but flooding, right?
That part.
That's quite a tsunami, right?
And let me tell you something. People believe that water has to be above your head to flood you. Oh, no. That's not true.
Yeah.
It's just not true.
Not much came from above during that time.
You know, it's amazing. I can't tell you the number of vehicles I saw during Hurricane Katrina in 2005 where the water line was not above the car. They drowned because of the velocity, the days of starvation of sitting in their car. No one knew where you are. This went on for weeks. So these are real issues that impact, and people thought this was just Ninth Ward. This was a widespread dynamic, and we won't even talk about the environmental impact. When I left there, I was still coughing 6 months later, having been impacted by that dynamic. So we'll get into an environmental impact conversation a little bit later.
So what is going to happen with the dismantling of the environmental agency?
I am not an energy policy expert, nor am I an expert as it relates to EPA, but I want to have a common sense conversation with you. If we don't have oversight over folks like the biolab, over landfills in terms of permitting and usage, then we're going to have some significant problems. There is a reason why we don't put landfills next to schools. Data centers, we can build green data centers, but we're not doing that. And right now, pretty much centers are coming in left and right, but there's no regulation as to that. A data center uses the same amount of power that a small town uses in terms of water to cool the facility, as well as energy. So we're going to be putting many nuclear power plants just to power these facilities. That infrastructure improvement, it comes off of your back. You and I are going to be paying for this based upon the incentives that were given out by Governor Kemp. I am not anti-business, but Senate Bill 34 would have placed a moratorium on data centers coming into the state of Georgia. We are at 74% increase. That's higher than anywhere in the country. And so we're simply saying that they have to pay their fair share. We have no problem with them coming in. If you utilize eminent domain, make sure that you get fair market value for that land. Make sure that we've done an environmental impact study as it relates to our close proximity to communities and how they're impacted.
Keisha, this one is very personal for me because I'm a Georgia Power customer, and I've experienced the rate increase, really experienced it, right? So, what strategies would you advocate for to protect consumers like me? And what kind of support do you envision getting?
There are 5 members of the Public Service Commission. Currently, all of them are conservatives. I think that's the best way to put it. So the notion that I'm going to come in there and just change the entire process is not true. But I can tell you the power of one person. I was able to pass Erica's law to stiffen penalties for people who dragged race in the city of Atlanta. So that's why you don't see folks running all around, and doing donuts and pretty much locking down the highway. HB 54. At the time, no one wanted to support giving tuition assistance to Georgia families who had been impacted by fallen heroes, but we got it done. We were able to work with Republicans, work with Democrats, because we understood the importance of taking care of those who had served. My goal is to get information to the consumer. No one even knows the Public Service Commission exists because they don't want you to know. How can we benefit? Number one, we can place a moratorium on disconnection rates. This is for seniors, working families, folks with vulnerable health issues, nursing moms, pregnant moms, people who have specific needs, breathing and lung issues. Lastly, community benefit agreements. If you're going to come into Gwinnett, DeKalb, Clayton, if you're going to do infrastructural improvements, make sure that it benefits the actual community. We don't care about people making profits. What we care about is you coming into our community, stripping our resources such as water, such as energy, and in raising our utility bills and benefiting from those infrastructural improvements and not paying your fair share. A data center pays 5 cents per therm. You and I, we pay 21 cents per therm. If you knew this, I believe you would come and give public comment. If you knew this, I believe you would show up. So my job is to get on social media, do town hall meetings, put something in your utility bill to educate you about this. I shouldn't have to call you every year to negotiate my rate. That is crazy. Deregulation never served Georgia. Representation matters. Who's at the table matters. My interest is not picking a fight with Georgia Power. It's negotiating to have a tiered rate system for those who are the most vulnerable, that they're not left behind. And there's a way that we can do that with community balancing.
I like that, community balancing. Yeah, because the rates are going up.
Yeah. They're going to continue to go up.
It's to go up. And that's a problem.
That's not the issue that you have. The question is, for grandma that lives across the street, for that working family, do you have a problem with them having a special rate because they cannot pay their utility bill? Or do you want them sitting in the dark? We're going to go into foreclosure or eviction, and they won't be there. And then you start to see these deserts of communities. You should not have to compete with paying your utility bill and getting your blood pressure medication. That should not be happening. And that's the reality of what we are dealing with today.
Right. Let's move it back to you, Juan.
Well,
We're having a fiery conversation here today.
yeah,
And I love it.
this is how you get it done, you know. So I want to ask this. So how can the Public Service Commission promote renewable energy initiatives while balancing the economic interests of the state?
Well, you know, utility companies, water companies, and let me just go over a couple of things because no one knows what we do. We regulate water, telephones, telecommunication, infrastructure, railroads, and water. So it's not just power. So I want to be clear about that piece. Your question is, how do we balance all of those, right? And I
Yes.
think that there's a fair way that we can do that. One, we start with an audit. If you are receiving record number of profits, how do we balance that as we decide to increase rates? I don't know if you noticed, but Georgia Power made an announcement a week ago that they're going to freeze rates for 3 years. Did you see that? 3 years. Here's the problem. It's disingenuous. I can freeze your rate and make it 21 cents a therm at overall cost of $1,000. But if the overall cost is $6,000 and your rate's still 21%, did I really freeze your rates? And that is the dynamic that we're dealing with. We tack this on through these special permits, through these special fees. Most people don't even look at the bill to see what's on there. And we'll get into broadband communication a little bit later. So what we have to do is make sure that these rate hikes are justified, that these caps are in terms of record profits, that they're balanced and within reason. And also, if we're going to do infrastructural improvements, that they benefit the communities. Plant Vogel was built off of our backs. It had a $35 billion overrun in terms of cost. And they went and raised rates for those communities who utilized that plant by 24%. But all of us paid the cost in that. And so what we're simply saying is that let's make sure that there is a benefit to the community, that we're looking at the audits, that we're looking at how we're spending the dollars. If we need to come in and do improvement, fiber optics and things of that nature, let's make sure that it was a real benefit to the communities and not a benefit to Georgia Power.
Interesting.
Solar power is the next way. You ask, how do we do that? Nobody knows that Georgia Power has a buyback program. Nobody knows it, but it's too costly. The average person cannot afford to put solar panels on their homes. So my thought is this, forget about that. Put them on libraries, put them on hospitals so that we can drive down the overall cost in our communities. And that's the benefit to the neighborhood. You don't care if a data center comes in, pay your fair share and make sure you're not placing that burden on the backs of us. Each of the incumbents in this race have received over $500,000 in campaign donations. Do you really think that you're going to bite the hand that feeds you?
Yeah.
And so the other piece is it's important, and all of us have made a commitment. You cannot take money from the individuals you regulate. Is it expensive to run statewide? Of course it is. But we have to make a commitment. And for me, this is a social justice issue. Having water and power is a social justice issue. You asked me in the beginning, what's the correlation, Keisha? If you don't have water to feed your family, basic necessities, then you cannot live.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Keisha, this is there's a word education. This is edification. It's very interesting. Now, it seems like, I mean, I'm learning a whole lot today. I'm sure the panel is also. What measures would you support to increase transparency and accountability within the PSC decision-making process?
Mm-hmm. The way that the PSC votes is not like the General Assembly votes. You can go and pull the voting record on any piece of legislation. Most of the deals are done through stipulated agreements. These are decisions that are made in an executive session type body. It's as if the four of you are able to get together and cut a deal behind, and then you come out and you pretty much rubber stamp it. And that's how the PSC is operated. So when we're having a conversation about rate hikes, You would never know it because that's not what's on the agenda. So what we have to do is we have to get information to the consumers. Hey, guess what? We're having a conversation about providing a mini nuclear power plant to power that facility that's coming to Jackson or that's coming to Douglas. We're talking about putting one at Fort Gillem. Did you see that one? We're talking about bringing one right here in Metro Atlanta. Well, think about what that's going to do to the Forest Park community. They already really don't have a big tax base. And I know this because I represented them when I was a member of the General Assembly. They were always looking at ways to bring in commercial business. And so the way that we do this is that when they come in, we put in the infrastructure. There's railroads, there are tracks there. There are all types of things that we can do to create revenue. Yes, they bring in a tax base, but they don't create jobs. These facilities are the size of a football field and often ran by 3 to 10 people. But in terms of the consumption, the energy grab, the water grab, the land mass, can you imagine how many single family homes we could put there? Can you imagine how many people we could house in those communities? And we're not even getting to the conversation about eminent domain, which is terrifying. And we saw this right here in Atlanta. So I have a history of taking on these types of conversations. I'm not a Johnny come lately.
Interesting.
I can tell Augusta is rearing to go with a question.
Listen, as first and foremost, Sean, because of, I know Keisha, Sean, first and foremost, I had to jump out earlier, but back in. Thank you for coming on. I know your time is valuable and it's precious. And of course, we talk regularly, so I'm super excited. I wanted to be able to present the next question because I think it speaks to, it'll kind of lead into your thoughts on ingenuity, your thoughts, and even how you spoke on use of land. And we've talked about, lack of homes, legitimate homes and affordable housing in Atlanta. We've had those conversations. So I really wanted to lead into this from a standpoint of even your work on the Fallen Hero Bill. And for people who don't know, you even have the Ban the Box initiative, which is it eliminated the ability for you to eliminate employees strictly based on their criminal background. And, Sean was very instrumental in that. So in knowing you and knowing the work that you have and the real passion that you have for this city, not just your district, but for the city and the state as a whole, how does all of that experience, I know, but explain to our audience how all that experience applies to the work that you're going to do and the responsibilities encompassed under the PSC role?
I'll tell you a quick 30-second story. When I came into the General Assembly in 2012, you may remember the name Calvin Smyrie. He's a legend. I said, you know what? McDonald's and all fast food companies should not just give out sodas. They should give folks the option of a bottled water. So you know what? I'm going to do a bill. And I'm going to mandate in my legislation that you have to give folks the option of a bottled water. So I dropped the bill. I got a phone call. And basically, the phone call was from a lobbyist saying, hey, Keisha, slow your roll. It's a good piece of legislation. You're talking about diabetes. You're talking about overweight children and obesity. But wait a minute. You just got here. You want to make friends, Keisha. I said, okay, well, what are you saying? And I won't name the lobbyist because he's a friend and I'm going to be asking him for some money. He said, well, I think it's a little aggressive. You don't want to piss off McDonald's and Coca-Cola. And it was Coca-Cola. And I'm not trying to piss them off right now, but I'm giving you an example. I said, well, I believe in this and I think it's the right thing to do. So I'm going to do it anyway. So I kept pushing. I started dropping my press releases. And then I got a phone call from my good friend, Calvin Smyrie. And this is what Calvin said. He said, you're not going to pass this legislation. It's never going to get a hearing. And they're going to raise money against you and you're going to be out of here and you won't be able to do any good work. And I said, well, what do you mean, Calvin? He said, withdraw the bill, fight another day. Let's find some other things that you can do to work on. Where does this come back to my point? Ban the box. People said you'll be crazy to fool with that, right? Why does anybody care about people who've been incarcerated? Because I have family members who have dealt with that. I have family members who tried to put their lives back together desperately after serving a sentence and couldn't get the time of day. But for certain folks on the north side of town, when your dad owns the car wash, when your dad has access to resources, it's a little bit different. So because brown and black and marginalized communities were impacted by that, I cared about that. So when Representative Tyrone Brooks pushed that legislation every year that he was there and it went nowhere, I was happy to put my name behind it. What is the point of having any influence if you do nothing and say nothing? All of you know that our silence doesn't protect us.
Yeah.
I promise you, for all the folks who went out there and voted in the last presidential election, if they could do it all over again, oh my God. I never believed when I went to Tel Aviv that that region would look the way that it looked. And we all knew this was coming. So my point is, the correlation is this: to much is given, much is expected. There's a reason why broadband internet hasn't expanded to rural communities, because there's no cost. People can't make money off of it. But if we do it as a partnership, public-private partnership, if we mandate that we do it, if we put it in the stipulated agreement that says, if you're going to come into these communities, you're going to expand it, because you have to expand it. Will it cut into your profits a bit? Of course it will, but it's the right thing to do. And at the end of the day, when you uplift one community like Fort Valley, like Brunswick, like Athens and Blue Ridge, then one day they will have the same access as Gwinnett and Clayton and Cobb. And at the end of the day, that's what we're all here. When I look at all of the organizations in terms of their intent, it's to bring a better quality of life. Everybody can thrive. And I think that's ultimately what we want. Clean, good energy, reliable grid, and we all want to have the capacity to just live our lives.
Clean, good energy. Now, Keisha, to do what you're doing and to run a campaign that you're running costs money, right? Costs money. What kind of support you're getting from the community and businesses?
You know, it's so interesting. When you have a track record for taking on tough issues, and I'm going to give you two examples. I did not support the public safety training facility in DeKalb County. The land was owned by the city of Atlanta. People go, well, why would you not want to see police officers be trained? Would that not be something great? Yes, I believe that well-trained officers make safer communities. I believe that. But when you have an activist that's gunned down and the body camera footage hid, when you have a situation where the cost started out at 30 million, it went to 60 million, it went to 90 million, we never asked the taxpayers. We never had one conversation with them about how we were spending their money. That is an issue for me. All I said was, put it somewhere else. The city of Atlanta owns tons of land. Lastly, I have a track record for taking on issues that are not necessarily popular. I'm not trying to pick a fight with Georgia Power. I want to come to the table and negotiate. How can we create a tiered system for marginalized brown and black communities that are the most vulnerable, who have health challenges or health mandates, seniors and working families, so that they can thrive and survive while companies like Georgia Power have record historic profits that are higher than the national average? How can we get that disconnect rate down for metropolitan Atlanta? We did it during COVID. We were able to place a moratorium on shutting off your power and your water during COVID. So it's the right thing to do. And we have to have people at the table who have a heart for that, who have a mind for that, and who are willing to make the argument to do the right thing. Nobody's trying to cut off Georgia Power's kneecaps. We can't undo deregulation. It's here. There is nothing better than competition. And I can assure you, if Georgia Power had real competition, we wouldn't be having a conversation about how high your bills were.
Wow. All right, so let's move it back to Dr. Juan.
Yes. So I want to start by saying this. Like I'm even more fired up. This really about doing something. We can't do everything, but we can do something. So it's appreciated. My question is this: can you discuss a time when you successfully navigated bipartisan support for a legislative initiative, and how that experience might translate to your role on the PSC?
Miriam's Law. There was a young woman that was a bartender in metropolitan Atlanta. She was working a late night shift. She was kidnapped by a sex offender, a predator, who had recently gotten out of jail on parole. For whatever reason, it didn't really get the initial traction that it should have gotten because it was an off election year. We all know you cannot let a good crisis go to waste, respectfully. We were able to not only pass this legislation with bipartisan support, a Democrat wasn't allowed to carry it, but we had two Republicans on the Senate and the House side that got behind this legislation. And here's what it says. It says that if you are a level 3 sex offender, this is someone who has demonstrated no level of rehabilitation. This is someone that you do not want your puppies or your kids around, that one, you have to wear an ankle monitor because the courts had ruled it unconstitutional. Then we have to rate you. Rating means we give you a score in terms of your behavior, in terms of the crimes that you committed. And we're not even going to get into conversations about sex offenders assaulting children because it's just too graphic and disgusting. But the point is, we were able to pass Miriam's law during the legislative session, put it in place, get it voted on. The governor signed it in July. And so now we have a law that says that if you are a level 3 sex offender and you have demonstrated no level of rehabilitation, you will not be getting out of jail. And we had to do this because we have to protect society as a whole. That legislation would never have passed without Republican support. Guns. People are not going to agree with us in terms of how we mandate guns. But the one thing my number 2 signer on House Bill 54 was a Republican. His name is Alan Powell. He was chair of the Public Safety Committee. Staunch Republican, staunch gunman, former sheriff. He got behind this legislation because it was the right thing to do. Now, as a Democrat, why would I get in bed with Republicans? Because it's necessary. Because we have to figure out how to work across the aisle. Because we have to build a consensus and a coalition. Because at the end of the day, we're not going to agree on everything. But if we can get to the sweet spot, and we can get to the middle of the road where you win a benefit and we get a benefit, that is ultimately what it's all about. I don't see that happening in Washington, D.C. I don't see anything happening. I see gridlock and I see destruction. And so those are examples of how I intend to work with the other 4 members. Now, there are 2 seats this year. District 2, Miss Alicia Johnson happens to be the Democrat on the ballot. It is my hope and prayer that she is successful because guess what? 2 heads are surely better than 1. And it is my hope, given her experience, given her commitment and passion to this conversation, that we're able to advance that, even though it will be 2 to 3, getting information out. I shouldn't have to fly down to Savannah every time we're having a hearing, but Alicia can take on those conversations and I can do that here in the northern part of the state.
Yes. I like your energy, Keisha, and I like you said something very important about meeting in the middle, which, as you emphasize, is not what is happening in Washington. Maybe you need to put your eyes on Washington one of these days. But meeting in the middle is always the best thing instead of being, having a stalemate and nobody gets anything done.
Well, I've been trying to work on Mr. Foster, Dr. Foster over here. I'm hoping that we can send him up in that district because, there's a lot of people that are itching at Congressman David Scott. In fact, that was the race that I believe that I was born to do. But sometimes God has another plan. And when you remove your ego from the conversation, when you remove you from the conversation, there's a lot of work that can be done. Everybody doesn't get to throw the football. Everybody doesn't get to be the quarterback. Would I love to go to Congress tomorrow? Of course I would. Do I find energy policy boring? Yes, I do. But at the end of the day, this conversation is too important to sit it out. Is it sexy? It is not. But it is a necessity that we talk about how we lower energy rates, how we create sustainable and renewable energy, and how we have infrastructural improvements in our community that are not always in our best interest, and how we manage that and balance that. That is too important to sit that out.
Okay, so how do you now plan to involve communities in these discussions about energy and policy and utility regulation?
Well, Dr. McCook, the first part is showing up. It starts with conversations like this, getting information out to consumers. One, you have to know that there is a consumer agency that's put in place to work for you. The Public Service Commission was intended to be a watchdog advocacy group where you can go and dispute your power bills and water bills. How many people know that? It doesn't happen. And so the goal is to utilize social media. It is to put information in utility bills. It is to use public service announcements through billboards, through television, through radio to say there's a conversation about increasing rates in your community. All communities are not on the Georgia Power grid or the Plant Vogel grid. Some of them operate through EMCs, like my mom, snapping shows. They use smaller utility companies that provide services. And so, again, these companies come to the PSC and ask for rate increases based upon different factors. And so, we have to get this information out. You show up at town hall meetings, you provide, and you're transparent. Sometimes you're going to have to raise rates. So I'm not someone coming to you saying that I'm not going to support a rate increase. It's just unfathomable. It's unrealistic, I think. But when we provide the justification, when we provide the community benefit agreement, when we talk about how we're going to shut down places like BioLab when they break the rules, when they don't provide a community benefit, people can meet you in the middle. Most of us don't have a problem with our utility bill, our water bill, or our cell phone bills increasing. You don't have a problem with that. Most of us want to know why. And unfortunately, for too long, most of us have not paid enough close attention to what's happening with these particular utility bills. And it is our goal is to shine a spotlight. The best disinfectant is sunshine. Getting information to people so that they can make informed decisions.
Just as a follow-up, that you said a whole lot a while ago, but is there that infrastructure to get that word out? Is there a department dedicated, like a PR? I mean, is there something like that in place?
Well, all of those things are in place. The problem is that they're not talking to you about the things that really matter, like the eminent domain case that you see over here in Sparta, Georgia, like the fact that we've recently frozen the rates for Georgia Power, specifically for those consumers, but they didn't talk about the build-out cost that we're going to be paying later on. Like the fact that we have thousands of coal ash ponds that are buried throughout the state of Georgia that emit harmful fumes, those types of things. Water and sewer improvements, things of that nature. The PSC has oversight over those types of activities. And so to your point, what direct oversight will we have? Well, let's start with an audit. Georgia Power, these are what this is what you earned in profits. This is what you're charging the ratepayers. Then if you're going to freeze it, what are we going to do with the additional funds? How are you spending our dollars? How are you setting and determining rates in specific communities? And given your profits, can we put in place, and will we, a stipulated agreement that says we have a tiered process for families who have health challenges, for seniors, and for working families to get the disconnect rates down for those who are greatest impacted?
Yeah, I want to make a comment and listening to you and everything that you're saying. And it's occurring to me that many of us don't have a lot of knowledge about the PSC's responsibilities and what they do. A lot of this is new information. And I've been encouraging my teammates here to get more involved, to get a seat at the table. These 3 young men that I'm working with, been encouraging them. Can you speak to that, why it's so important for more people to get involved?
Well, let's put the public service election aside. I don't know anyone that has not been impacted by the decisions that are happening in Washington, D.C., whether you have a loved one or a mate that's impacted by the immigration conversation, whether you have someone that has small children that attend school. Dismantling the Department of Education has a direct relationship or result upon each of you who are fathers, who are parents, who are aunties, because that affects our kids. Dismantling the Environmental Protection Agency has a direct correlation given what we're dealing with in terms of BioLab. There's a reason why we have meat inspectors. In fact, the reason how we got them was because of botulism. We had bad meat. And so for that reason, we ended up putting in place the FDA. So all of these things are in place. What I am simply saying is get involved, whether it's school board, whether it's the coroner, whether it's dog catcher, whether it's county commission, whether it's city council, everything happens at the local level. It's not in Washington. What happens in your communities, the permitting process, the zoning process, that would determine if a liquor store is going to go across the street from your kids. When we talk about sex offenders, and I'm sensitive to both sides, I've sat down with the family of a sex offender who cannot find anywhere to live. That really does happen. So we have to balance that. But we don't want him next door to the school or her because there are female sex offenders. And so all we're saying is at the end of the day, our silence is not protecting us. We can no longer not open up our bills and understand that there is a cost that you're paying by the lack of knowledge. And so we want to make sure we get the information to the consumers so that they can make informed decisions. And I have always said this throughout my career. If I don't do the things that I say I'm going to do, fire me. Where do you go to work every single day and you are not paid by performance? How is it that Plant Vogel overrun by $35 billion and someone wasn't fired? How was this allowed to happen? And so we need to have a performance-based system in power or in play, because at that point you hold a people truly accountable. Hold them accountable.
Yeah, let me just add this again. I think term limit is a powerful thing at all levels. All levels.
Quick statement. This is true because I can say it to the world. When I was on the city council, and this was not targeting the older members, my good friend Michael Bunn, or any of those guys who have been there forever, it really wasn't. But I believe term limits should be in place because good, clean blood is necessary. It is at the end of the day. And I think if you saw that in Washington, you would see a completely different world that we were going to live in. As soon as I offered the bill or authored the bill or sponsored the bill, I immediately got pushed back. I said, well, Michael, I'm simply saying that no one should serve more than 2 consecutive terms, is what I said. Mm-hmm. And then he talked about ombudsmanship. He talked about the fact that you have to have people who have the knowledge and the expertise. No pushback. But Michael, you know, you and some others have been here forever. So we're talking about, in addition to this term, another 8 years. But nonetheless, it got no traction. And again, Michael and I are still good friends because you do want to be respectful. You don't want to be balanced. You don't want to come in and throw a rock and not build a consensus to be able to work with your colleagues. And that is not what I intend to do with members of the Public Utility Commission. And I'm going to be frank with you. I've had the opportunity to work very closely with the lobbyists over the years. So I am not necessarily a threat to their existence. I simply want to negotiate on behalf of those communities that are vulnerable and that have been negatively impacted by some of our decisions.
Yeah, but not too many individuals or decision makers are going to make the decision to write themselves out of power. You know, and that's part of the problem. But one other thing, and it's again, public information. How do you get this word out? You know, what kind of strategy? Because I'm saying, we're learning so much tonight. Mm-hmm. And this should not be new information.
Well, we've already talked about community engagement. We talked about the use of town halls. We talked about social media. We talked about radio. Right now, based upon the 13-14 debates that we've had, Georgia Power has announced a couple of days ago that they're going to freeze the rates for 3 consecutive years. Why do you believe that that would happen unless there were a group of people who were sitting around discussing energy policy as it relates to how we're going to take on some of these utility giants? So they are watching. They are listening to these conversations because at the end of the day, these folks are in business to make a profit. Mm-hmm. Every business is in business to make a profit. I understand that. But I am also saying that we need community benefit agreements that benefit these communities. Germany did something phenomenal. They utilized open vacant parking spaces to create solar power. What if all of our Walmart facilities had solar power capacity so that just a parking lot sitting there alone could generate power to power a community or a neighborhood? Clean, renewable energy. Don't you think that would drive down costs? Why wouldn't Georgia Power invest in that? Because they can't make money off of that. So what we have to do is we have to push us in a different way to have different conversations. There is a reason why we no longer ride around in a horse and buggy. There is a reason why we no longer use horses and bayonets. We're in jets and airplanes. And so we have used an antiquated dinosaur model for how we've done business because it's benefited the folks who make money. So what we're saying is it's time for us to talk about solar. It's time for us to talk about wind. Right now, hydroponics is one of the fastest industries in terms of growing food. We utilize farms right now as it relates to how we produce salmon. I'm not saying that it's clean or dirty, but there's use of technology to benefit. And lastly, we can build green data centers. If you're going to put a football field and take up huge swaths of land, why not put solar powers on top to power it? Why not utilize that same radioactive waste to cool the facilities versus pumping in new clean water from a community that's already strained? Recycle the water. Every time it rains, that water should go into a vat where we can collect it to cool those machines. I mean, this is common sense. And this is the stuff that Germany, Finland, the Netherlands are already doing. There is a reason why we kept our coal plants open for years when we had folks who were dying of lung and breathing related issues. There's a reason they stayed open because somebody was making money. Was it the most effective? It was not. Was it the most least costly? It wasn't. And so we have to utilize technology in a way. There are vehicles riding around in my neighborhood where there is no driver. You've seen them too. I was in shock at 52. I never thought I would see this in my lifetime, but it's coming. So let's embrace technology in a way, but balance it with community needs.
My last thing on public education, because there's communication, but there's also effective communication. And my real thing is, are we effective in getting the information out there? You know, because people who vote, they're the true decision maker, but they need to know what they're voting for and who they're voting for. And I think that could be an issue. Augusta, let me pass it to
you. Sean, I think you've answered a lot of it, and I would, because, I'm going to, of course, make my exit out of here shortly, but I wanted to make sure that I asked this question and pose it in a certain way. If elected, I believe you will be elected, but if elected and when elected, when you get into the role, what is your hope to not just to get accomplished in the role, but how do you want to leave the role after you departed? What do you want to measure your success and what you've done? I know you're a community person. I know you're a person who values the individual. What are the goals that you have in mind, and how do you want to overall measure that success as the public service commissioner?
I get chills thinking about this. We all have a mandate to leave the world better than we found it. How do I measure success? There should be broadband internet all throughout the state of Georgia, regardless of the socioeconomic income. Every Walmart that you pass should have a solar panel parking lot where we can produce clean, renewable energy. If you are a senior, a nursing mom, or someone with health challenges, there should be a phone number that you can dial into to set up a tiered rate system so when you fall on hard times, there is someone that you can call. When you get a $2,000 water bill, there should be someone or an apparatus where you can go before an appeals board, because the PSC has hearings regarding rates and disputes, where you can go to, because no one knows this, and this should be information on the web for your utility company, for your water bill company, where you can go in and dispute your water bill or your utility bill. And lastly, we need a public service commission that does not take a dime, 1 cent, from the individuals that they are charged with regulating and that they have oversight over. That is a legacy that I'd like to leave behind.
A legacy that is worth leaving. Juan?
That's a little lofty. I'm not naive.
No, it's good though. it's good. I'm gonna jump back because we said a lot. I want to jump back to the reforms. Which ones would you propose to reduce the influence of utility companies on the PSC?
to reduce in terms of how they are able to shape policy. Well, I think you have to take the money out of it, because with anything, if you follow the money, that drives the conversation. So I support Senate Bill 34. Senate Bill 34 places a moratorium on data centers in the state of Georgia, meaning no more can come in right now until we find there is no policy in place right now to regulate a data center. Doesn't exist, which is why they pay 5%, 5 cents in therms, and you and I pay 21 cents in therms. We are okay with them coming. Pay your fair share. Do we want to provide incentives? Yes, to the tune of $296 million. I think that there's some discussion there. So if we're going to provide an incentive, Dr. Marcel, we need to make sure that that community where that incentive was given, no matter what county, no matter what city, that the community benefited. And how do we do that? If there's a hospital there, we need to be putting solar panels on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be a tiered system for families in that community that have fallen on hard times. We need to make sure that we have local energy assistance programs for those folks who are having challenges. That's how we do that, to make sure that we are balancing the needs of community and companies and corporations.
Balance.
Oh.
Community benefit agreement. I'm sorry, I went all around 285.
So to follow up, great question, Dr. Marcel. You yourself, I guess, or your team has to do a lot of research so you can know exactly how you can approach these folks who are going to do these regulations, of the emerging technologies. Is that correct?
Yes, but I want to be transparent, and I think that it speaks volumes to who I am.
Right.
There are 3 gentlemen that are running in the same race with I. Mm-hmm. One of them has some residency issues, which is irrelevant. But Peter Hubbard, Robert Jones, Daniel Blackman share the same level of passion for this conversation as I. I have learned more in these debates, listening to their concerns, listening to the issues that they raise, than anything that I ever could have learned from the research that the team put together. And it is their passion for this conversation. And I submit to you, we learn more when we put our hearts and minds together than when we work apart. One person can win the seat, but I think it's important to understand the power in collaboration. I would not insult one of them by saying, hey, I'd love for you to join my team. But I can tell you this, on June 18th, the first phone call that I will be making is to all 3 of the folks who served in this campaign to say, we need to link hearts and minds, and I want to work with you to advance some of the ideas that you have. All of this I didn't come up with overnight, but these are the best and brightest ideas that I have seen since I entered this campaign. I am not an expert on energy policy. I'm not. But there is not one person in this particular race that will outwork me, that will go to the levels that I have went to in terms of energy policy, legislative policy, the relationships that I have built over 2 decades with the existing members of the General Assembly. So when I come in, I can bring a bill and say, this is some legislation that I think you should really look at. There are very few people that have that. And lastly, viability. Of the 4 people that are running, I am privileged to say that I am the only one that's been elected out of the group of folks that are running. Running statewide is quite challenging. It's exhausting. It's mentally grueling. But at the end of the day, when you sign up to do this particular work, you've got to be willing to see this the long haul. You cannot be bought off and paid off by folks like Georgia Power and utility companies and campaign donations and compromising. And I submit to you that in the 2 decades that I've had the privilege of serving the public, that I have never been engaged in malfeasance. I've never been engaged in a scandal. And I probably have raised the least amount of money in this campaign. But I can assure you my reach over the years, I've talked to people because they trust me. I do what I say I'm going to do. If I'm going to vote no, I'm going to let you know in advance and tell you why I took that vote. If I'm going to vote yes, you're not going to find out during the meeting. We're going to have those conversations in advance. And I think that that's all people want is transparency. They want the truth. and they want all the information. And that has not happened with this particular Public Service Commission.
So, Keisha, can you mentioned June 18th. Can you, for us, those of us out there who are not familiar, or those who are familiar and want to refresh, tell us about those dates again. On the June 18th, what happens in that
Thank you so much. I'm going to send you guys some literature. So June 17th is election day for the Public Service Commission throughout the entire state of Georgia. Right now, we have early voting happening throughout the communities from May 27th, which started last Tuesday, all the way through June 13th. You may early vote. After that date, you have to go to your polling precinct in your community. If you do not know where you need to vote, you may go to mvp.sos.ga.gov to get your polling precinct, your early voting locations, a list of all of your elected officials. It is a wealth of information. The Public Service Commission is elected statewide. They regulate water, energy, power, railroads, natural gas, and telecommunications throughout the state of Georgia. There are currently 5 members. Most of those members were never elected through gerrymandering and political football. They were appointed by our governors, Governor Deal in past and Governor Kemp currently. So none of them have been elected. They were all appointed. So this would be one of the first elections that you had in the last probably 16 years to vote for the member of the Public Service Commission.
Thanks.
Interesting. We're finally getting the opportunities to vote. Wow. You know, you said something about how decisions are made, especially in Washington. You just have people to sign. This is a decision we're living by, right? What they call those type of decisions? When the president just whoop, and that's it.
Executive orders.
There you go. Anyway, so as we're drawing down tonight, we're gonna go around the room, but before we do that, Keisha, is there anything else you would like to say? Any questions we didn't ask you? Anything that you believe is important that you want to get out there? Please do so.
I want you to take the opportunity to do your homework. Take a look at all the candidates. And most people will go, why would you name your opponents, Keisha? Because they're brilliant. Peter Hubbard, Daniel Blackman, Robert Jones, myself, I am Keisha Shawn Waits. Take a look at our background. Take a look at our legislative track record, our voting record. They don't have one, respectfully. But take a look at the backgrounds and the things that we have done in terms of who has stood up for Georgia families. I don't come to you as the person with energy policy expertise. No. But what I do come to you as someone who has a lived experience, just like you, I've received one of those skyrocketing utility bills and one of those water bills, and didn't necessarily know how to navigate it. In fact, I didn't even know how the PSC set rates, which is what I look forward to coming back and discussing with you again at another time. Thank you for putting this conversation together. Thank you for your time and generosity tonight. Dr. Foster, I am going to get you in an election up there in Gwinnett County very, very soon. I look forward to running your campaign and being boots on the ground. All of you tonight, thank you for this important conversation. I am super grateful. As a praying woman, I am hopeful that the voters will see my heart and my desire to serve.
Wow. Augusta, you need to respond.
Oh, none at all. You know, Sean knows how I feel about her. I believe she's going to be amazing for the role. And her and I have had these discussions. You know, there's some things we're planning and putting into the works, and definitely will be following up with her and have her back on, you know, after the successful victory and the other endeavors that she has going on. So I just want to be thankful and grateful to her for lending us her time, because I know it is valuable specifically in this season. And again, y'all have the dates. We'll make sure that the link is posted on social media for all of the details you need. And again, Sean, I applaud you, not just for being who you are, but having the heart and the honesty to even reference your opponents in a positive way. So yeah, we're excited. We're looking forward to it.
That is not how politics is pursued these days. Dr. McCook.
Yes, again, Keisha, we really appreciate you coming on. It's good to have a female in this thorn over here of men that we, you know. But you know, they say there are leaders and there are those who lead. And I remember John Maxwell once saying, a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. And I think you have demonstrated that tonight. And we wish you all the best. And we're here rooting for you. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Right. So, Keisha, I too want to say thank you for sharing your vision and your experience and, you know, your passion for service.
Yeah.
And, you know, for public service with us today, because that came out strong. You're all about service, and you're all about, you know, lifting people up. You're not one who's going to walk away and kick the ladder out from behind you. That is not.
I'll give you a challenge. The questions were very thoughtful tonight. But I fully anticipate you holding my feet to the fire. So the next time we get together, let's have some serious conversations about how rates are set. And I'm looking forward to a firing squad. And I think I'll be ready to have those conversations. We had some time constraints, so I'll be in a different environment. I took a quick, break here to meet with you tonight. But I am very serious about this conversation. And, the stakes are too high, folks. And so I thank you for your kindness. This could have been a very different type of conversation. And given the amount of education that I see here with us tonight, I'm very clear that it could have went a different way. But I really want to have a very serious, meaningful conversation, nuts and bolts. And I'll be working with Mr. Foster to get some information out that I think is going to be very important. Energy policy is a little complex. It's not something that I easily understand, but we have to do our homework. And given the amount of resources and dedication that I see before me, I know you've done yours. And I thank you, and I don't take this lightly.
Well, we have you here because we know you're about serious business and doing the people's work. And that's important to us also, because that's what we do here at the Collision with Purpose.
Yes.
It's all about uplifting, serving people, and especially people who are underserved. That's what we do around here. I just want to say something to our audience, that I hope that today's conversation is giving you deeper insight into the role of the Public Service Commission and the impact it has on our daily lives, from the rates we pay to the energy policies that shape our communities. Juan, I'm going to pass it to you.
First, as everybody said already, want to thank you so much, our distinguished guests, who we will be having back. We have to have you back. I want to keep this conversation going, and anybody from your team that they can join us, we would love to have them. To our audience, our other guests, we thank you every week for tuning in, especially a conversation that is much needed. This platform is for real, raw conversations, and so as we close today's episode of Bridging Generations, remember this: change doesn't just happen, it's made by people like you when you show up. Whether it's casting your vote, attending a town hall meeting, or lending your voice at a community event, your presence matters. Please understand that your presence matters. The bridge between generations is built by action, so let's honor those who came before us and empower those coming after us by doing our part. The time is now, so let's go and be the difference. You know what we do every week, same time, every Monday, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. We look forward to the conversation being continued next week. Have a good one.
Good night.
Bridging generations. The world keeps turning, the times move fast. What worked before may not always last. Fathers, sons, brothers stand tall. Learning from each other, we rise through it all.